was just supposed to be a fresh start. When Daniel and his wife Rachel moved to Birchwood Street, they were desperate to leave their past behind. Their old life in Chicago had crumbled, lost jobs, health scares, and a miscarriage that tore them apart emotionally. The cozy white and blue bungalow on Birchwood seemed like a new beginning. Cheap, quiet neighborhood, close to Daniel's new job, too perfect to question. But it was the attic room that felt wrong. "I'll use it as an office," Daniel said the first time they walked in. But even as he stood there, surrounded by nothing but old paint cans and an empty rocking chair in the corner, his skin crawled. A pressure weighed on his chest. It wasn't fear exactly. It was discomfort. Rachel felt it too. The first night, she said, "I don't think I want you working up there." Daniel laughed it off. He set up his laptop, a lamp, a small fan. That night, while he was organizing books, the fan turned off by itself. The cord hadn't come loose. The switch was still on. Daniel plugged it in again. This time, the light bulb flickered too. The laptop froze. He heard a sound, like a chair scraping, slow, dragging. He turned toward the rocking chair. It was swaying slightly, though the windows were shut tight. And that smell, something like mold, iron, and something rotting. He turned off everything, went downstairs, and told himself it was old wiring. But when he passed the attic door the next morning, it was open, and the chair had moved to face the window. Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That attic room had started to feel like it was watching him. The chair always moved slightly when he wasn't looking. His laptop kept glitching, folders deleting, documents corrupting. One day, he found a Word file he didn't remember writing. It simply read, "Don't look under the floorboards." He showed it to Rachel. She brushed it off, said he was overworked, stressed, but Rachel wasn't the same either. She started walking in her sleep. He found her standing outside the attic at 3 a.m., just staring at the door. "Why are you here?" he whispered. She turned slowly. "They want to speak," she said, voice dry and unnatural. He took her back to bed, heart pounding. The next morning, she didn't remember anything. He avoided the attic for days. He worked in the living room, but the noises didn't stop. Scratching from above, faint music, a humming voice that repeated, "Let me in." One evening, when Rachel was at her sister's, he dared to return to the attic. He brought a flashlight and pried up the floorboard beneath the rocking chair. What he found made his stomach turn. Teeth. Human teeth. Dozens of them. Clean, almost polished, arranged in the shape of a circle, and beneath the teeth, scratched into the wood. She sat here too. He staggered back, breathing heavy. Then he saw it. The reflection in the attic window. A tall figure standing behind him. But when he spun around, nothing was there. He slammed the floorboard back and ran. Rachel's behavior grew more alarming. She began talking to herself in mirrors, whispering things like, "I told you I wouldn't forget you." One night, Daniel found her crouched in front of the bathroom mirror, giggling. "What's so funny?" he asked. She stared at her reflection and whispered, "She says you're next." That same week, Daniel met the neighbor, Ms. Lindell, an elderly woman with a cane and cloudy eyes. She leaned in and whispered, "You're in the Berkeley house, aren't you? They shouldn't have sold it." "Why?" "The last family vanished. No blood, no signs, just gone. Except for the baby. They found her in the attic, eyes wide open, laughing. That night, Daniel had a dream. He was trapped in the attic, tied to the chair. Rachel stood in the corner, smiling with blackened eyes. Behind her stood an old woman, face twisted like melting wax, whispering in Rachel's ear. He woke up screaming. But the real nightmare had only begun. Rachel disappeared. Her car was still outside. Her phone lay on the bed, but she was gone. The police searched the area, even brought dogs. Nothing. Daniel was left alone in the house. He didn't sleep. He didn't eat. He just listened to the whispers in the vents, to the soft creaking of the rocking chair upstairs, until one night the mirror in the hall cracked on its own. And in that split glass, he saw her again. Rachel, standing in the attic, smiling. Daniel stopped leaving the house. He boarded up the attic door, nailed it shut. But it didn't help. At night, he would wake to hammering sounds above, a voice whispering his name, and the teeth. More kept appearing, on the kitchen counter, in his shoes, on his pillow. One morning, he found a sentence carved into the bedroom wall. "You will sit next." He bought a camera, installed it facing the attic. At 2:13 a.m., the camera recorded the door slowly opening on its own, though still nailed shut. A figure crawled out, jerky, wrong, like a puppet on strings. It moved past the camera and vanished. He burned the footage. That day, the chair moved again. Now it faced the attic stairs. He finally cracked. Armed with salt, a hammer, and a cross, Daniel entered the attic again. The room was cold, ice cold. The chair rocked by itself. Then the lights went out. In the darkness, he heard her voice. "Sit down, Daniel. Join us." He swung his hammer wildly and screamed. Something cold touched his neck. He turned and saw nothing. But in the rocking chair, something was sitting. It looked like Rachel, but its eyes were hollow, face stretched too wide, skin gray. "I kept the seat warm for you," it said. Daniel ran, fell down the stairs, cracked a rib. He crawled out of the house and never went back. Daniel was hospitalized for 2 weeks. They treated his injuries, but no one believed his story. The house was inspected. The attic was empty. No chair, no teeth. He tried to get his life back. Moved in with his brother. Started therapy. But strange things followed him. He'd find objects from the house, Rachel's hairbrush, the attic floorboard, with no explanation. He stopped looking in mirrors. He never found Rachel. Never went back. One day, he got a call from a realtor. "We just sold your old house," the voice said. "New family moves in tomorrow." He tried to warn them, tried to find the address again, but Birchwood Street didn't appear on GPS. The neighborhood was real, but the house was gone. In its place, an empty lot, wild grass, no records. The house had vanished. Rachel was never found. But every year, on October 17th, the day she disappeared, he receives a single envelope in the mail. Inside, a tooth. 10 years later, Daniel received a call from a young woman claiming to be a journalist, researching paranormal disappearances. "I found something strange," she said. In 1952, a woman named Eliza Berkeley hanged herself in that same attic. Her husband and child disappeared. She left a note saying, "The chair is ready." Daniel's blood went cold. The woman continued, "There's more." Every 20 years since then, the house shows up in the same spot. New family, same outcome, disappearances, teeth. "I've burned it down," Daniel said. "It doesn't exist." But it does. It always returns. Later that night, Daniel visited the old site, and the house was there. Fresh paint, lights on, children's toys in the yard. As he stared in horror, the front door creaked open. A figure stepped out. "Rachel," she smiled. "We've been waiting." Then the house vanished again. Daniel was never seen after that night. Only the chair remains, in an empty field, always rocking. Lena Monroe moved into the quaint Victorian home in a sleepy Texas town, not out of choice, but necessity. Her grandmother, The only family she had left had passed, leaving her the aging, creaking house nestled between overgrown pines and dense fog. On the surface, it looked like any other vintage southern home. Peeling white paint, wraparound porch, and glass-paneled doors that whispered of the 1800s. It was the silence that unnerved her first. Inside, the house groaned with age. Floorboards creaked under every step, even when she wasn't moving. On her first night, Lena chalked up the strange groans to the structure settling, to the house breathing, as old houses often do. But as she lay under the thick quilt in the antique canopy bed, the sound of footsteps pacing just outside her door stopped her heart. Slow, deliberate. Creak. Pause. Creak again. She sat upright, heart hammering. "Hello," she called out, her voice shaky. Silence. She gripped the lamp switch and twisted. Nothing. The power was out, just like that. The shadows in the room lengthened, stretched, like fingers reaching across the walls. She reached for her phone, the flashlight casting a weak beam, and tiptoed toward the hallway. But there was nothing there. No one. Just the long, dim corridor with faded floral wallpaper and family portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her. She retreated to her room, heart still thumping, and pushed the dresser against the door. Maybe it was the wind, or maybe her imagination was spiraling. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning brought a deceptive calm. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, bathing the room in a soft glow. Lena could almost believe the previous night had been a bad dream. Almost. But the gouges on the door's wooden surface, deep, claw-like marks she swore weren't there before, said otherwise. She ventured downstairs, stepping cautiously, as if the house itself might react. The kitchen, with its chipped tile and rusting stove, was filled with the scent of dust and something faintly sweet, like decaying flowers, a scent that shouldn't be there. Determined to shake off her unease, Lena explored the attic. Her grandmother had warned her never to go up there, claiming it was filled with black mold and was structurally unsafe. But curiosity won. The door groaned louder than anything she'd heard the night before, as if it hadn't been opened in years. Dust billowed out like a breath from something alive. Inside, it was darker than she expected, even with the attic window letting in slivers of light. Trunks lined the walls, stacked like forgotten memories. One trunk in particular stood out, black leather, gold latches, and a broken lock. She opened it slowly. Inside, wrapped in brittle newspaper and linen, was a collection of antique dolls. Their glass eyes were chipped, their painted smiles faded. But what unsettled Lena most was that their tiny eyes seemed fixed on her. Something thudded behind her. She spun. Nothing. But the attic window, once closed, was now ajar, wind fluttering the thin curtains. Lena slammed the trunk shut and bolted back downstairs. She didn't believe in ghosts. But something in this house was watching. The third night was worse. Lena stayed up, flashlight in hand, heart racing at every creak. She sat curled on the couch, a blanket around her shoulders, determined not to return to the upstairs bedroom. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the chandelier above her began to sway gently, then more violently. She froze. The lights flickered. The air turned icy cold, and then she heard it. Soft at first, a child's giggle, high-pitched, echoing down the hallway. Lena's stomach dropped. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice cracking. Silence. She backed away, the wooden floor moaning under her weight until something sharp pierced her heel. She stumbled and looked down. One of the dolls from the attic sat on the floor, its porcelain face cracked, one glass eye missing. She hadn't brought it downstairs. Trembling, she kicked it away and locked herself in the bathroom. She stayed there until sunrise, curled in the tub, shivering. Later that morning, she tried to research the house's history. Local records were limited, but she discovered something chilling. Her grandmother had once had a sister, Emma, who disappeared in that very house when she was 8 years old. No body ever found. No sign of struggle. Just gone. Vanished. Suddenly, the doll's cracked face and that giggle in the dark took on a whole new meaning. The following day, Lena contacted a local historian. Mrs. Dobbs, a woman in her 70s, agreed to meet and share what she knew. They met at the town library. "That house has bad bones," Mrs. Dobbs whispered, glancing around. "Things don't stay buried there." She explained how, decades ago, children had gone missing from the neighborhood. The only connection: they were all last seen near Lena's house. Back then, it belonged to a man named Thomas Everly, Emma Monroe's uncle. Rumors had swirled about occult rituals and strange sightings. One account claimed Everly had tried to summon spirits, believing he could bring back his own daughter who had drowned in the lake behind the property. "But what does that have to do with me?" Lena asked. Mrs. Dobbs leaned in. "They say the house keeps souls, especially the young, and it doesn't like to be disturbed." Lena returned home shaking. If her grandmother had known, why had she willed her the house? That night, the knocking began. Slow, deliberate, on every door in the house. She screamed. No one came. She wasn't alone, and she hadn't been for days. Lena began to unravel. Sleep-deprived and afraid, she installed cameras in every room, but the footage the next morning left her paralyzed. At 2:59 a.m., the camera in her bedroom showed the closet door creak open by itself. At 3:01, a figure, a pale child with dark, sunken eyes, crawled across the floor toward her sleeping form. At 3:03, the screen went black. No footage after that. She checked every corner of the room, every closet, every vent. Nothing. She left the house that day, staying at a motel. But something followed her. The scent returned. That sickly, sweet smell. And then, at 3:12 a.m., her motel TV turned on by itself, playing static and one repeating phrase whispered over and over. "Come home." She returned one final time to the house, not to stay, but to burn it. She soaked every floorboard, curtain, and antique with gasoline, the doll trunk included. She lit the match with a shaking hand, but before she could toss it, a voice rang out. Clear, young, right behind her ear. "Please don't." She spun. A girl, around 8 years old, stood there, transparent, crying. "Emma?" Lena asked, voice breaking. The girl nodded slowly. "I just wanted to play." Lena froze, tears in her eyes. She dropped the match. Flames erupted around them. As she ran out, choking on smoke, she turned back, catching one last glimpse of Emma standing at the window, waving, smiling as the house collapsed into embers. The police called it arson. Lena called it closure. But sometimes, late at night, in the silence of her new apartment, she still hears footsteps and a giggle. Tyler was just a regular guy with a side hustle as a delivery driver for a late-night courier app. Most nights were quiet, drop a parcel, take a photo, move on. But that one October night in rural Texas, it would change everything. The app pinged him around 11:58 p.m., a delivery to a remote farmhouse 2 hours outside of town. Oddly, the address wasn't listed on Google Maps, just a set of coordinates. The package was small, wrapped in brown paper and twine, cold to the touch. The note attached read, "Deliver by midnight. Do not open. Do not knock." Tyler laughed nervously, assuming it was a Halloween prank. By the time he turned onto the winding country road, the sky had darkened completely. No stars, no moon. Just the rhythmic swish of wiper blades, brushing away the mist clinging to his windshield. As he pulled up to the property, a chilling realization set in. The house was ancient. Its windows were boarded up, and the roof looked as if it would collapse any second. Yet, a single light flickered inside. He stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching under his boots. Every instinct screamed, "Leave!" But he was too curious and too broke to quit. Tyler approached the porch, box in hand, and placed it gently at the doorstep. He turned to leave. Then the door creaked open. A rush of icy air blew out from the open doorway. Tyler stopped mid-step. The air smelled like mildew and rust, and something else. Coppery. Metallic. He backed away slowly. "Hello?" he called, his voice barely audible. No response. But from inside the darkness, something moved. He was sure of it. A shadow shifted, quick and low to the ground. Then the app on his phone pinged again. A new message. "Delivery not complete. Take package inside." His heart pounded. "What the hell?" he muttered, staring at the screen. It updated again. "Take package inside, or we will." The letters pulsed red. He turned toward the package, only it wasn't there anymore. The brown, paper-wrapped box was gone. Tyler's breath hitched. No, no, no. Then, behind him, the floorboards inside groaned, like something heavy was being dragged. He couldn't stop himself. He stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind him. Tyler's flashlight flickered as he stood, frozen in the decaying entryway. The air inside was thick with dust, and cobwebs clung to his face. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, and dozens of old picture frames hung askew, each holding portraits of people with their faces scratched out. Suddenly, a whisper floated through the air. "You shouldn't be here." He spun around, heart thudding. Nothing. He moved deeper into the house, the floor creaking beneath every step. The hallway seemed longer than it should be, stretching out as if the house was warping around him. Then he saw it. The package. It was placed neatly in front of a door at the end of the corridor. A door that hadn't been there before. Drawn by a force he didn't understand, Tyler reached for the knob. It was cold. Too cold. He opened it. Inside, the room was filled with dozens of identical packages, some still wrapped, some torn open. And in the center stood a tall mirror. But the reflection showed a different room, a better lit one, and in the reflection, behind Tyler, stood a man in a suit. Skin gray, eyes hollow. Tyler turned. No one there. The reflection remained even as Tyler stepped away. The man in the mirror didn't mimic his movements. It only smiled, raising a pale hand to point at the center of the room. Tyler followed the gesture. A small table stood there, and on it was an opened box. Inside was a human heart, still beating. Suddenly, all the other boxes in the room began to rattle, violently, like something inside them was trying to claw its way out. Tyler ran, but the hallway had changed. The house was no longer decaying. It was thriving. Fresh wallpaper, new furniture, and the sound of laughter echoing from unseen rooms. He turned into what should have been the kitchen and found a family seated around a dinner table, but their skin was sewn together at the seams, eyes wide open, unblinking. In front of them sat more packages, and one of them, he recognized it. It had his name written on the label, in blood. Tyler screamed and backed away, slipping and falling onto the cold wooden floor. He crawled backward into the hallway, but the house wasn't done with him. The lights above burst, one by one. Something was following him, its footsteps heavy, wet, dragging. He ducked into a side room and locked the door behind him. Panting, he turned around and screamed again. This room was filled with screens, security cameras displaying different angles of the house. In every frame, something black moved in the corners, watching, waiting. Then he saw himself on the screen, standing in the very room he was in, but his double was smiling and slowly lifting a knife. Tyler spun in place. No one. When he turned back to the monitor, his reflection was gone. Suddenly, pain erupted in his side. He looked down, blood seeping through his shirt. A wound, one he hadn't made. And then came the whisper again. "Welcome home, Tyler." Tyler woke up in his car. Or at least, it looked like his car. Same air freshener, same crack on the windshield. But the world outside was dark, distorted, like someone had drawn over reality in ink and ash. He reached for his phone. One new message. "Delivery complete. You may leave." His hands trembled as he turned the key. The engine roared to life. He drove faster than he ever had before, away from that house, that nightmare. By the time he reached the city, the sun was rising, birds chirped, cars honked, life moved on. But Tyler didn't. He tried to quit the app, uninstall it, but it wouldn't go away. Every night at 11:58 p.m., it pinged him. New package, new address. And when he didn't accept, things started happening. He lost time, woke up in places he didn't remember going. He sees the mirror sometimes, in dreams, in windows, even in puddles. And in every reflection, there he is, the man in the suit, still smiling, still waiting.